Why conflict in avoidant relationships never gets resolved. Conflict in avoidant relationships rarely resolves because safety feels threatened the moment emotions intensify. Avoidant partners learned early that closeness often leads to disappointment, overwhelm, or emotional punishment. So when conflict appears, their nervous system interprets discussion as danger, not opportunity. Instead of moving toward resolution, avoidants instinctively move away to regain internal calm. Distance becomes their coping strategy, silence their shield, withdrawal their emotional anesthesia. They believe stepping back prevents escalation, but it actually freezes conflict in place. Resolution requires presence, but avoidant attachment equates presence with vulnerability and potential loss. To them, staying engaged feels like standing too close to an emotional fire. So they retreat, hoping time alone will magically dissolve the problem. But time does not resolve emotional fractures. It only hardens them into quiet resentment. Unspoken feelings do not disappear. They wait patiently beneath the surface. Each unresolved conflict becomes another brick in the wall between partners. Avoidants often intellectualize problems instead of emotionally processing them together. They may analyze situations logically while ignoring the emotional impact entirely. This creates conversations that feel cold, dismissive, and painfully invalidating. Their partner feels unheard, unseen, and emotionally abandoned during moments needing connection. This emotional absence often hurts more than the original conflict itself. Pain deepens because the partner seeks closeness while the avoidant seeks escape. Avoidant partners struggle to tolerate emotional intensity without feeling engulfed or controlled. Raised environments often taught them emotions were inconvenient or unsafe, so they learned to self-soothe alone rather than co-regulate with others. Conflict demands co-regulation, empathy, and emotional flexibility under stress. Avoidants lack practice here, not because they do not care, but because caring once required shutting down feelings to survive emotionally. When confronted, avoidants may minimize issues to reduce internal discomfort quickly. They say things like, "It's not a big deal," or "You're overreacting." These statements are defenses, not deliberate attempts to hurt. Minimization allows them to shrink emotional demands back to manageable levels, but it invalidates the partner's lived emotional experience profoundly. Invalidation breeds frustration, anger, and a desperate need to be understood. The partner pushes harder, hoping persistence will finally break emotional distance. Ironically, this pressure activates the avoidant's deepest fears of suffocation. The cycle accelerates. Pursuit meets withdrawal, closeness meets shutdown. Conflict resolution requires leaning in when discomfort rises, not backing away. Avoidants do the opposite because retreat feels like emotional self-preservation. Their nervous system prioritizes calm over connection every single time. Apologies are especially difficult for avoidants because they imply emotional accountability. Accountability feels like surrendering autonomy or accepting blame they fear cannot survive. So they delay apologies, offer vague ones, or avoid them entirely. Without repair attempts, conflicts remain open emotional wounds. Over time, partners stop raising issues because it feels pointless. Silence replaces dialogue, and emotional intimacy quietly erodes. Avoidants often believe love should feel easy and low maintenance. When conflict arises, they interpret it as incompatibility, not communication failure. This belief encourages emotional detachment instead of collaborative problem solving. They may fantasize about relationships without conflict, misunderstanding intimacy's true nature. Healthy closeness requires navigating disagreements, not avoiding them. But avoidants equate peace with absence of emotional demands. Another barrier is their limited emotional vocabulary during stressful moments. They struggle to name feelings beyond irritation, numbness, or fatigue. Without language, meaningful resolution becomes nearly impossible. Partners ask, "What are you feeling?" and receive silence or confusion. This silence feels rejecting, even when confusion is genuine. Misunderstanding deepens because emotional translation never occurs. Avoidants often shut down mid-conversation when emotions escalate too quickly. Their body enters fight or flight, even if danger is only emotional. At that point, rational discussion becomes neurologically inaccessible. They may leave the room, stop responding, or mentally check out. This abrupt disconnection feels like abandonment to the partner. Trust weakens because consistency disappears during critical emotional moments. Conflict resolution requires vulnerability, something avoidants instinctively resist to protect themselves. Admitting hurt, fear, or longing feels too risky, so they stay emotionally armored. Armor blocks pain but also prevents connection, intimacy, and real healing. Without vulnerability, conflicts remain rigid standoffs instead of bridges toward understanding. Avoidants often believe ignoring conflict avoids problems, but tension leaks through coldness or distance. Relationships gradually become transactional, while partners carry most emotional labor and grow exhausted. Every request for closeness triggers fear of suffocation, keeping resolution out of reach. Presence without engagement solves nothing. Superficial agreements collapse, and old issues resurface repeatedly. Many avoidants were never shown healthy conflict growing up and lack emotional tools. Their nervous system defaults to withdrawal automatically, prioritizing calm over connection. Until they tolerate discomfort, unresolved conflict quietly dominates the relationship. Conflict resolution requires slowing down, not shutting down. Avoidance speed up escape the moment discomfort appears. This reflex undermines every attempt at mutual understanding. Partners often misinterpret avoidance as a lack of love or care. Avoidants misinterpret emotional needs as excessive or controlling. Both narratives deepen misunderstanding and emotional distance. Over time, unresolved conflict transforms love into quiet coexistence. The relationship survives but stops thriving emotionally. Intimacy fades, replaced by routines and emotional caution. Avoidance may feel relief as emotional demands decrease. Their partner feels loneliness despite being in a relationship. This mismatch eventually forces a breaking point. Resolution never happens because both partners speak different emotional languages. One seeks closeness through discussion, the other seeks safety through distance. Without translation, conversations repeatedly fail. Healing requires avoidance to tolerate emotional discomfort longer. It requires learning that connection does not equal loss of self, and that conflict handled gently can deepen intimacy. Until then, conflict remains frozen, unresolved, and quietly destructive. Not because love is absent, but because fear is louder. And fear always interrupts resolution before understanding can begin.